What if the part of you that feels imperfect is not a weakness to hide, but a quiet force that is shaping something meaningful behind the scenes? What if the things you try so hard to fix, cover, or erase are the very things creating growth in places you cannot yet see? Most people move through life believing they must become flawless before they can be worthy. They polish their strengths, conceal their cracks, and compare themselves endlessly to others who appear stronger, more capable, more complete. Over time, they begin to treat every imperfection as proof that they are lacking. They start to believe that if something inside them leaks, stumbles, or falls short, then they must be less valuable. But what if the places where you leak are also the places where something is quietly growing? In a modest village surrounded by wide fields and low, rolling hills, there lived a farmer named Matthew Carter. He was not a wealthy man. He did not own large farms or employ many workers, but he possessed a steady rhythm of living that gave his gaze quiet meaning. Each morning, long before the sun rose over the horizon, he would wake in his small wooden house at the edge of the village. He would stretch his tired shoulders, wash his face in cool water, and step into the pale blue light of early dawn while most of the world was still asleep. There was a well nearly a mile from his home, and it was the only reliable place to collect fresh drinking water. So every morning, without exception, Matthew carried a wooden yoke across his shoulders. Hanging from each end of the yoke was a clay pot. Together they swayed gently as he walked the narrow dirt path between the fields. The journey was the same each day, the same road, the same distance, the same quiet routine repeated so many times it felt woven into the fabric of his life. One of the pots was flawless. Its surface was smooth and strong, its shape balanced and perfectly formed. When Matthew filled it at the well, it held every drop until he reached home. It never leaked, it never failed. It carried its full share of water with silent reliability. The other pot had a thin crack running along one side. It was not a dramatic break, not enough to shatter it or make it useless at first glance, but enough that as Matthew walked back along the dusty path each morning, a thin stream of water slowly slipped through the crack. Drop by drop, the water fell into the soil. By the time they reached the house, the perfect pot was still full. The cracked pot was only half full. For a long time, this pattern continued in silence, but silence has a way of amplifying thoughts. The perfect pot began to take quiet pride in its ability to carry its full load. It saw how it completed its task without loss or flaw. It began to notice the difference between itself and the pot beside it. Over time, that pride turned into judgment. One morning, as Matthew walked the familiar path home, the perfect pot finally spoke. It did not shout. It spoke with a calm sharpness that cut deeper than anger. It pointed out the obvious, that half the water was gone before they even reached home, that effort was being wasted, that one pot did its job perfectly while the other fell short every single day. The cracked pot listened in silence, but inside, the words sank deeply. It already felt the truth in every drop that escaped through the fracture in its clay. It already saw the damp trail behind them on the path. Hearing it spoken aloud only made the feeling heavier. Slowly, it began to believe what it heard. I am not enough. I am a burden. I am broken in a way that makes me less useful. Weeks turned into months. The routine never changed, but the cracked pot's thoughts grew heavier. It carried not only water, but quiet shame. Finally, one morning after Matthew returned home and set the pots down beside the door, the cracked pot found the courage to speak. It apologized. It told the farmer it was sorry for wasting his effort every single day, sorry for not doing its job properly, sorry for being defective. Matthew paused when he heard this. He looked at the pot for a long moment, then smiled, not with amusement, but with understanding. He gently traced the thin crack along its side and spoke softly. The next morning, he said, he wanted the pot to pay attention to something. Just look carefully along the path as they walked home. So the next day unfolded as every other day had. They walked to the well, they were filled with cool water, they began to journey back. About halfway home, Matthew spoke quietly and told the cracked pot to look down along the side of the path. At first, it saw nothing unusual, just the familiar dirt road it had traveled countless times. But then, it noticed something different. Small patches of color, tiny blossoms scattered along the edge of the path. Red, yellow, and pink flowers stretched gently along the roadside, their petals catching the soft light of morning. As they continued walking, the patches grew into rows. The rows grew into a long line of delicate flowers swaying in the breeze. The cracked pot stared in surprise. It had walked this path every day for so long, yet it had never truly seen what grew beside it. It had been so focused on what it lost that it never noticed what was being created. When they reached home, the cracked pot still felt the familiar emptiness inside. Half the water was gone again. It apologized once more, even after seeing the flowers. But Matthew sat beside it and explained gently. He had always known about the crack. Months earlier, he had planted flower seeds along that side of the path. Each day, as they walked back from the well, the water that leaked from the pot had watered those seeds. Drop by drop, without effort or awareness, the cracked pot had been nurturing something beautiful. Without it, the flowers would never have grown. Without its flaw, the path would have remained dry and empty. The realization settled slowly but deeply. For so long, the cracked pot had measured its worth by comparison, by efficiency, by what it lacked. It had never considered that value might appear in a different form, that purpose might not always look like perfection. It began to understand that its weakness had not made it useless, it had made something else possible. Over time, it stopped seeing itself as broken. It began to see itself as necessary. Travelers who passed through the village often admired the path leading to Matthew's home. Flowers lined one side in bright, welcoming colors. They brought life and beauty to an otherwise ordinary road. No one knew exactly why they grew there, but Matthew knew, and the cracked pot knew. Years passed, and the routine remained. Matthew grew older, the seasons changed, the village shifted slowly with time. Yet each morning he still walked to the well with the same 2 pots, one perfect, one cracked. And the cracked pot no longer felt ashamed. It understood something many people spend their entire lives trying to learn. Perfection is not the only path to purpose. Sometimes the things we lose create something we cannot yet see. Sometimes the places where we feel weak become the places where growth happens quietly. Sometimes our cracks are not signs of failure, but channels through which meaning flows. The deeper truth is simple, but difficult to accept. You do not have to be flawless to be valuable. You do not have to carry everything perfectly to matter. Somewhere along the path you walk each day, something may be growing because of the parts of you that feel incomplete. You may not notice it at first. You may focus only on what you lack. You may compare yourself to others who appear whole. But if you pause and look carefully at the side of your path, you might see it. Something small, something alive, something quietly beautiful. Flowers, perhaps, growing not despite your imperfections, but because of them.